Are you all ready? Yes. Okay, thank you. Thank you all for your patience. In 1999, I was retained by a female employee of the National Restaurant Association concerning several instances of sexual harassment by the then CEO. She made a complaint in good faith about a series of inappropriate behaviors and unwanted advances from the CEO. Those complaints were resolved in an agreement with her acceptance of a monetary settlement. She and her husband see no value in revisiting this matter now, nor in discussing the matter any further, publicly or privately. In fact, it would be extremely painful to do so. She is grateful that she was able to return to her government career, where she is extremely happy serving the American people to the very best of her ability. She looks forward to continuing to work hard for them as we face the significant challenges that lie ahead. She wishes to thank the media for the restraint they have shown her, and thank her family for their love and support, her colleagues and supervisors for their patience and forbearance, and her advisors for their wise counsel, and most of all, her dear husband of 26 years. Everyone is entitled to be treated with dignity and respect in the workplace. Sexual harassment is unfortunately very much alive and with us even today, and women must fight it in all kinds of workplaces and at all levels. My client stands by the complaint she made. Thank you. I'll take questions at this time.
What would your client say to Herman Cain if she could talk to him right now?
Don't know. I'm sure she would disagree with the statements he's made concerning her complaint.
What was her level of interest, though, in responding with something specific because of the fact that Mr. Cain had, in your words, badmouthed her and her reputation? Wasn't there a strong desire by her to say something to refute that matter?
She believes this statement does refute that.
Mr. Bennett, can you describe...
Wait, one at a time.
Married at the time of the incidents?
She's been married for 26 years. The incidents were in 1999, yes.
Mr. Bennett, can you describe the nature of the harassment that she alleges by Mr. Cain?
Beyond what's in the statement, sorry, beyond what's in the statement, she has decided not to relive the specifics of the incident, so I cannot give any further details.
Is that because she's not able to do so because she's limited by the confidentiality agreement, or is that because she's made a decision that she doesn't want to but could if she wanted to?
The latter. She's made a decision that she does not want to do that.
Is the group going to lift the NDA on her, sir, or have they?
Excuse me?
Is the group going to lift the non-disclosure agreement on her? Have they?
We have not asked them to lift it beyond making this statement.
How long did the actions and
I don't remember the exact time period of the incidents, but it was over a period of time of at least a month or two, as I recall.
Can you tell us the extent to which you were in consultation with the Cain campaign on this?
Zero.
How many incidents are we talking about here?
More than one. We're not going to get more specific than that.
Do you believe that this would have likely succeeded on the merits if you had taken it to the EEOC and into court?
It's hard to say. We resolved the case at an early level. It never got to that point where I could evaluate it as a case for litigation.
Was it something more than just a number of instances where she was made to feel uncomfortable? Is there any evidence that you would have or could have presented?
If we had needed to bring a case in court, we would have marshaled the necessary evidence. I never got to that point.
Have you been in consultation with any other attorneys who may represent any other women?
No. We're not, other than the fact that it was a monetary settlement, we're not to disclose the exact amount.
did it relate to a year's salary, maybe?
We're not going to get into how much of a percentage of a salary it was or any further details on the monetary settlement.
When you say inappropriate behaviors, did that include any physical contact with your client?
We're not going to get more specific about what was physical, what was verbal. It qualified as sexual harassment in our opinion.
Are there any witnesses involved who actually corroborate this to make sure that she's not misinterpreting any actions of Mr. Cain?
I cannot recall at this time whether there are any third persons present for any of the instances. I'm sorry.
Do you think Mr. Cain is bound by this agreement?
That's a legal issue, and I'm not going to get into that. Sorry.
Does the woman
violated it?
Excuse me. It's a legal issue because, first of all, he did not sign the settlement agreement. And secondly, he may have been gone from the NRA at the time it was signed. So whether it could have bound a CEO who was no longer there, who didn't sign it, is a legal issue that I haven't had to get into, and I'm not going to express an opinion on it.
Is she aware that? Is she aware that?
Say that again?
The NRA to come out and make a statement.
Because we have a settlement agreement that has both confidentiality and non-disparagement provisions in it that I signed and my client signed, and I did not want to expose us to any liability under that agreement. I felt this was the prudent way to go.
Do you think these behaviors in any way make, or does your client believe, that it makes him unsuitable to be president of the United States?
My client has not expressed any opinion on that to me, and I don't believe she's going to express any opinion on that.
Her emotions this week as all this has played out, what is she saying to you?
She's been anxious about it, understandably, and I know she's relieved that we've been able to resolve it the way we have today.
If you could, for us one more time, characterize how you view Mr. Cain's statements on this matter. He has said that he did not hit on anybody, didn't call anybody hot or anything like that. I mean, can you characterize how your client views
those statements are inaccurate factually.
Can you say? Can you?
As to my client, I'm not aware of the other instances for the other women.
Is your client aware, or does she understand that by not being more forthcoming about the facts, that she opens herself up to the claim both by the Cain campaign and his supporters that maybe she really doesn't have a case and that there isn't enough evidence? I mean, that's sort of the way that things may play out.
Okay. Mr. Cain knows the specific incidents that were alleged. My client filed a written complaint in 1999 against him specifically, and it had very specific incidents in it. And if he chooses to not remember or not acknowledge those, that's his issue.
Mr. Bennett,
What?
Who was the complaint filed with?
Internally with the NRA, with whatever procedure they had at the time.
Mr. Bennett, does your
Did the
client
statements
have,
or
excuse me,
behaviors?
does your client have the money to pay back the money she received in the settlement, plus any penalties to pay back if she had decided to break this non-disclosure? Was that an option?
I never discussed that with her, and it's not something we expected to do.
After the statement was given to the supervisor, did the behaviors and the activity stop?
I honestly do not recall whether he was even there when she filed the complaint. I believe her complaint was filed in July of 1999. We settled in September of 1999, and I don't know what contact, if any, my client had with Mr. Cain after she filed the internal complaint.
Did you personally hold a deposition with Herman Cain? Have you personally had him?
I have never met him. I have never spoken with him. We filed an internal complaint, and it was settled. You don't take a deposition of someone when you file an internal complaint. Depositions are taken in court proceedings.
Did she make her grievances known to her colleagues in the office?
I do not know.
Mr. Bennett, can you describe the best you can her emotions when she did file these complaints back in the 90s and the impact it had on her?
I'm sure she was very upset at the time. I know I met with her personally and discussed it, but I don't have a present recollection of her exact emotional state at the time. But having reviewed the internal complaint recently, I'm sure she was very upset at the time.
Have you all considered any future litigation or suits against Mr. Cain for what he said?
We have not considered them.
One of the things that Mr. Cain has repeatedly said is that this was just a severance agreement, and as distinct from a sexual harassment claim. Is that true?
That is an inaccurate description of the settlement agreement.
What is it?
A severance agreement is when someone is leaving employment and there's an agreement to pay the person usually a certain number of months of salary for whatever reason. It could be just because the person is leaving. That's very common in companies that are having economic problems, that have severance policies, that are unrelated to any misconduct or performance issues. This was a settlement of an internal complaint of sexual harassment. It was not a severance agreement.
You know what Mr. Cain knew about it at the time?
I don't know the exact procedure that my client followed in filing the internal complaint at NRA, but I would be astounded if the complaint was not brought to his attention.
Did she
You
continue
said
to...
something about witnesses. Were there witnesses to
I honestly do not recall whether any of the incidents involved third parties or other people being present. It's very common in sexual harassment cases for almost all the activity to be one-on-one with no third parties or witnesses.
Did she write this?
I don't recall. That was 1999. I just don't recall those details. I'm sorry.
Did she write this complaint with your assistants?
I don't remember that. I'm sorry.
And did she continue to go to work after she submitted the complaint?
I don't remember the timeline as to exactly when she left, but as far as I can recall, she continued working there after she filed the internal complaint for at least a month or so, but I'm not absolutely certain on that.
Mr. Bennett, your reaction to the fact that this is not the only claim, that we have another claim, there is now a third woman who says she did not file one, but she has complaints, and we're hearing of others.
There's an expression, where there's smoke, there's fire. The fact that there are multiple complaints tells me that it's more likely than not that there was some sexual harassment activity by this man at that time. All of that's subject to proof. He would be allowed to rebut all of them, and but the fact that there's more than one complainant is meaningful.
Mr. Bennett, if she wants to remain anonymous, fine. So then why bother having her lawyer come forward to even rebut any claim? Why not just remain anonymous and then just go on her way?
Because she's concerned about the statements Mr. Cain has made to the national...
Remain anonymous anyway.
I'm trying to answer your question, if you'll let me. Mr. Cain has made statements after Politico initially revealed that there had been one or more sexual harassment complaints against Mr. Cain. There were at least 2 sexual harassment complaints filed, one by my client. The statements Mr. Cain has made make it unclear who he's talking about all the time, but he has generally said these complaints were baseless, I did not engage in sexual harassment, and my client felt that she wanted to respond to those statements in a prudent way, and it's her position that it's most prudent for her to do it this way rather than exposing herself personally.
So then is she concerned that she's going to be exposed soon?
She prefers her privacy and not to be a public figure. If the media chooses to publish her name, that's the media's business. She would prefer that it not be published. Any other questions? Yes.
Are you making copies available?
I gave out a number of copies. I'll make some more copies. Just when we finish the conference, just let me know.
Who wrote this, right?
She and I wrote it together. Any other questions? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Sorry about the delay.
All right, so there you have it. Joel Bennett, the attorney representing this one woman who worked